Let's do our Copa America preview right now. David, Ninja, Michelle, and Nick ready to break it all down for you. It is a different tournament than Euro, so 4 groups of 4 each, combination of CONMEBOL and CONCACAF for this one. Top 2 get out of each group, so we don't have to start doing third place math and whatever else you need to do to see who will go through as we go forward. It is the second time that it has been held here in the United States. That's where I live. Between CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, it's going to be a huge event, massive stadiums. Tickets, believe me, are expensive. I tried for 1/2 second to see Messi in New Jersey and realized that I did not have a house to sell to sit in the upper deck by myself to go see that game. Let's get into our groups, though. Let's start with Group A. Nick, you have that one for us. Let's start with the opening game, which will be Argentina against Canada and everything going on in that group.
Yeah, plenty of fun right off the bat here, guys. Argentina, winners of 13 of their past 14 games since lifting the World Cup. I mean, they've got to be on cloud 9. Messi now applies his trade in Miami, in MLS. He knows these stadiums well now. He should be right at home in this tournament. And honestly, against Canada, just a gulf in class, unfortunately. These teams, guys, have played once before in 2010 with Canada losing 4-0, 5-0 actually in Buenos Aires. And guys, we saw a massive upset at Euro 24. Slovakia, the 48th ranked team, beating Belgium, the 3rd ranked team in the tournament. Canada is actually ranked 49th in the world, guys. Argentina, the top ranked team. So, that was the largest upset in Euro 2024 history. A Canadian upset would be even larger. And while I love the skill of young Ismail Kone in the midfield, Steven Estacao, a couple of experienced players, obviously Alphonso Davies, one of the most dynamic talents in world soccer. There's a reason Madrid wants to sign him. There's a reason that Ancelotti and Federico Perez want this guy. Jonathan David, a dynamic goal scorer. 20 goals scored in Ligue 1 this year. Everybody likes to hate on the defenses in Ligue 1, but they keep churning out young, prodigious center-back talents, Yoro, Saliba, all these guys. So David, a very, very good goal scorer, guys, but I think Canada just outmatched in this one. They'll be in tough to keep things close. Argentina entered on a 5-match win streak here. One of the most talented teams in the world. They left Paulo Dybala at home, guys. They left Paulo Dybala at home. So that's tough. Also in the group, Chile. And we've seen them do very well in Copa Americas of years past. But the 2015, 2016 teams aren't coming out of retirement, guys. Some of these guys remain on the team. Arturo Vidal, obviously cut from the team. Gary Medel, also cut from the team. They're a little bit older, but Claudio Bravo still there at 41 years old. Alexis Sanchez, 35 years old. Charles Aranguiz, also over 35. So as Sean says there, Canada may be fighting for the second spot, but with the experience of Chile, again, still kind of in tough. Peru, a little bit overmatched. They've won 3 of their last 4, but have lost to both Argentina and Chile in the last 8 months. So Canada hopefully can push for that second spot, and Canada to qualify is actually plus money right now on most books. Take a look around. If you believe in David and you believe in the performance of these guys against France just last week, definitely worth a shot. But Maxime Crepeau in net, 4 massive saves against France last week, guys. He'll need to stand on his head again for Canada to have a shot on Thursday night.
It is going to be an exciting one. It's going to be a historic moment for Canada just to play on that stage in that atmosphere. They went toe-to-toe with France. It's a little different against the World Cup winners in a competitive game. But Canada, like you said, plus money everywhere I saw as well, which is pretty exciting to think about. And the potential for Canada, I think, for sure, to operate in that group. They've been in a group of death in the World Cup. This isn't much harder. So they've got at least a little bit of experience dealing with that one. Let's move to Group B, one of the quote-unquote hosts of the World Cup as well. Canada will be one, U.S. will be one, and Mexico. So Mexico leads Group B. Ninja, you've got that one for us.
Yeah, probably the worst group, actually pretty easily, I think. In fact, this group has the longest odds by far in Group of winning team betting markets at plus 600. It's essentially a 2-horse race between Ecuador and Mexico, who each sit at plus 130 to win the group. Venezuela plus 550. Jamaica way back at plus 1,000. So let me start with Jamaica. Clearly, sports books don't think this team is going to do anything, but there is something about the attack that might be able to keep them in a match or two here. Mikel Antonio of West Ham, Leon Bailey of Aston Villa, even Damari Gray, who had toiled in the Premier League for many years before moving to the Saudi Pro League. But then dudes like Bobby De Cordova-Reid in the midfield bring some experience. And a lot of folks are high on Karoy Anderson, who plays at Charlton Athletic in League One. So there's a few players in this side. Might be an interesting squad to look at on a match-to-match basis, but probably not getting out of the group. Venezuela, really the unknown for me. A small handful of players play in Europe, some in the MLS, some in Brazil, etc. Somehow Solomon Rondon is in this team, which is hilarious to me. But then a lot of folks are high on Ecuador as they are co-faves with Mexico. Premier League fans will instantly recognize Chelsea's Moises Caicedo, but pay attention to defender Piero Hincapié of Bayer Leverkusen. He's a top center back that can tackle, pick a pass, play confidently with the ball at his feet. He'll be getting courted by some bigger clubs in Europe, but he could come out of this as, one of the defenders or even players of the tournament. Brings us to Mexico. Most of this Mexico side plays domestically in Mexico, and they've opted to go with a bit of a youth movement in the squad. So no like Herving Lozano in the mix, no Raul Jimenez in the mix. So it's an interesting move by Jaime Lozano, and we'll see how it pans out. One player in particular, though, obviously is Santiago Jimenez of Feyenoord in the Dutch league. I talked about Hincapié being coveted by bigger European clubs. This guy is going to be as well. Second in the Dutch league in scoring with 23 goals, adding 6 assists. I know the Dutch league is very attack heavy. Mm-hmm. They also have West Ham's Edson Alvarez, who is a very good ball winner in midfield as well. So from a betting perspective, I'm going to play Venezuela to finish bottom of the group at plus 225. Jamaica has the shortest odds at minus 145, but I've got to think they can grab some points here. And then I'll back Mexico to actually win the group at plus 130, level on odds with Ecuador, as I said. But I'll side with El Tri, young, but there will be familiarity, given the bulk of these players do play domestically in Mexico.
And of course, Mexico, always a home team when they play in the United States. The crowd is always behind them. The atmosphere is always behind them. They looked really good at the last Copa America before. They lost 7-0 to Chile in the semifinals, which is just not super necessary to our conversation, but I like to bring it up any opportunity I get, just so the world can think about it more often. I have Group C, which features the United States men's national team, obviously the hosts of this tournament, and a big opportunity for them leading into the 2026 World Cup. This is really the start of now you have to answer questions. Greg Berhalter questions whether or not he'd come back as manager for a long time. 5-1 loss to Colombia to start this window, and then a big 1-1 tie against Brazil in the second game. There's huge question marks around some of the U.S. starting spots, especially center forward. Pulisic's the obvious one to play with goal scoring. If you think the U.S. has any chance of going far, he's actually one to look at in terms of Golden Boot, because he will take every penalty. He will take every set piece. And if they need him to, he's going to play 90 minutes every single game, which is what we saw over the course of the 2 games in the friendlies. Uruguay are the big favorites in this group at minus 145 to win the whole thing. Bielsa has taken over as manager. He's added a bit of the Bielsa energy to Uruguay. They are not the sit deep, defend as a group, and only try and hit every once in a while on the counter. They are playing some of Bielsa ball. So they extend their lines. They press higher. They've had a phenomenal run in World Cup qualifying since he took over, including knocking off Argentina. But they have conceded more goals than we are used to them conceding. And he is going to tinker with the lineups as well. Outside of Darwin Núñez, there's not a ton in the attack that you can guarantee will be in the team early on. So it's one of those lineups to check every single game as you go forward. The other 2 teams in this group, Bolivia and Panama, I think for many are afterthoughts. Panama knocked the U.S. off in the semifinals of the Gold Cup last year in a penalty kick shootout. They went and they outplayed Mexico for the first 70 minutes of the Gold Cup final before finally going down to a stoppage time goal in crazy extra time that Mexico somehow always gets added when they play in CONCACAF. They're plus 500 to get out of this group. I'm not saying they're going to, but I think it's worth looking at. This is a team that has now played under Thomas Christensen as a manager for years now. They qualified for the World Cup. They know who they are. They understand how they want to play against different opponents. They get a ton of possession. And over the last year and a half, they have not lost a game that they took a first half lead in. So if they can get 1 or 2 early goals, they've got a chance at it. And that game against the U.S. is obviously going to be the big one for them. Bolivia, they've won 2 competitive games outside of La Paz and the altitude since 1995. The first one was against the U.S. in Copa America in 1995. So if they want revenge, Sunday's their opportunity. Or if they want to do it again, they beat Ecuador in 2015 in Copa America play. They are not effective outside of their country. They are going to try and pack the midfield with numbers, keep the ball on the outside, and try and counterattack through some physicality up top. This is a Bolivia team that will struggle. This is a team that probably is outside the conversation, and you can look at them at finishing last at minus 125 if you want to. I feel pretty safe about that one going forward, but the real question mark is if Panama can maybe surprise the U.S. for the second time in back-to-back years in this one. Let's finish up the groups with Michel. Group D, which I think might be the best group.
Yeah, so Group D has Brazil, Colombia, Paraguay, and Costa Rica. Now, obviously, the favorites to win the group are Brazil, who have a bit of changes when it comes to the roster, right? So, like Casemiro, Jesus, Silva, Richarlison. Obviously, Neymar isn't going to be there. He's injured. But that's a bunch of guys that aren't going to be part of this squad. So they've got a few regulars, if you will, that aren't going to be playing. But that doesn't really change a whole lot for Brazil because they can find some random guy basically from even the favelas, plug him in, and he's better than half the world, it seems. Which is the case with Endrick, right? We're looking at a 17-year-old who's taken a big step on the big stage here in the USA, and he's going to have a big tournament. Had 11 goals last year in the Brazilian league. Hasn't scored yet, but it's only 6 games into the year, and he's only 17 years old. To me, the class of the group obviously is Brazil. But then, as you're saying, David, the quality of this group does not stop with Colombia. Colombia is unbeaten in their last 22 matches underneath Nestor Lorenzo. Like they're unbeaten for a long time here, and they frustrated Brazil a bunch. They're 6-7-2 against Brazil going back to 2004, but not a single one of those games was decided by more than 1 goal. So it has been close. Colombia's gone toe-to-toe with Brazil for years, and they've won 3 friendlies against Spain, Romania, who just beat the boots off of Ukraine in Euros, the US, Bolivia, but whatever. They beat Germany, Japan, Iraq in friendlies as well. Like, this is a team that is set up to take down Brazil. I'm not going to go and say they're going to do it, but when you got a guy like Luis Diaz just running around tirelessly on the pitch and just creating, as I see him do for Liverpool every day, I like him for golden boot odds. I really, really do. He's got 4 and 5 games at the last Copa. He's scoring right now for Colombia like crazy. He scores for Liverpool like crazy. This is going to be an easy group because after Colombia, you got Paraguay, who just doesn't score. In the last 3 games, they have 1 goal. 1 goal, guys. Where are the goals supposed to come from Paraguay? Almiron, he's got 7 goals in 55 games for Paraguay. Like, it's just not going to happen. And the more I read about their coach, Daniel Garnero, is like he is just a firebrand and kind of a loose cannon all over the place. And this team needs stability. That is not what he's bringing to the table at all. I think that Paraguay is going to crash out of this group hard. It is going to be embarrassing for them. And that's where guys like Luis Diaz can pick up some goals. Same thing for Vinicius, right? Obviously for Brazil. And so after Paraguay, you've got Costa Rica, which we've seen Costa Rica do things at the international stage before, right? Yeah. Like we all remember the World Cup where they went on to, was it the semis or was it the quarters? I forget.
The quarterfinals 2014 in Brazil.
In Brazil, right? And in a really tough group with England and Italy, right? So like they've done things. Gustavo Alfaro has them drilled, coached down to a science. It's going to be a tough, compact group that's well organized. Ugalde is one of their up-and-comers, had a really bad season in Russia, but like, can you blame him with everything happening around Russia right now? We all know what I'm talking about. I don't expect them to get out of the group, but I think Costa Rica is going to be third and cause some problems for teams like Colombia and probably as well Brazil. But when I look at this group, to me, Brazil wins it minus 225. Not a whole lot of value there. But where I found some value is Colombia over 4.5 points in the groups. They just need to beat Paraguay. They should be able to do that easily. And Costa Rica, not going to be easy, but I can absolutely see them do that. And so whatever happens to Brazil is gravy in their game against Brazil. So they get wins against Paraguay, Costa Rica. That hits easily with 6 points. So that's where I'm on right now is Colombia over 4.5 points in this group at minus 134.
I'm sure everyone out there who watches the World Cup is asking, Keylor Navas, he's finally retired from international soccer. So he will not be a part of this for Costa Rica. But they made Germany and Spain's life hard and, hung in there with Japan as well. They had a moment, I think, in the third game of the group stage at the World Cup where they were going out into the next round. So Costa Rica, they are comfortable in these moments. Let's talk futures. Let's talk the big one. Let's talk winners. Shockingly, the World Cup champion holders, Argentina with Messi still in tow. They are the favorites. I'm looking at plus 175 for the most part. And then that pool of, it looks like favorites, Ninja, is Brazil and Uruguay as the clear standouts. What do you make of the numbers and what you're seeing?
I mean, Argentina deserved. But for me, I'm interested in Colombia at plus 1,000 and Uruguay at plus 550. I'm out on Brazil. Ronaldinho came out with that rant that he was finished with Brazil. And if that's the case, then so am I. I just love, and David, you talked about it. I just love the idea of Uruguay under Marcelo Bielsa. Not to get sidetracked here, but one of my favorite matches was when Bielsa's Athletic Bilbao went to Old Trafford and beat United. It was vintage Bielsa football. Just lovely to watch. Aesthetically so pleasing. And Colombia just experienced a lot of vets in this squad and some real match winners, like Michelle talked about, Luis Diaz. And we know what James Rodriguez can do when he puts that shirt on. So for futures, those are the two teams that I'm looking at.
I worry about anyone but Argentina because you've got Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, and even the USA because they're high up on the board on the other side of the bracket. So Argentina's path all the way to the final is like the parting of the Red Sea. As soon as they get out of that group, it's just eyes on the final and that's it. Whereas you got Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, US are going to have to beat up on each other to get through. It's going to be a dogfight for all these other ones. That's why I'm hesitant for anyone else than Argentina.
Okay. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, love the Uruguay play there, Ninja. Big fan of Bielsa ball. He likes to build in the 3-3-1-3 that we saw Germany use to devastating effect against Scotland. Plays a lot of pressing, but also a blend kind of a zonal marking, man marking scheme that really keeps his team on the front foot. So something that Uruguay probably could have used when they had strikers like Luis Suarez and Edison Cavani in their primes about 8 or 10 years ago. Now Darwin Nunez up top, also a guy who can run, but he doesn't really show it as much. Hopefully he can find some goals. I'm also a big fan of Ecuador. Huge fan of Caicedo. Didn't have the greatest season in the Prem this year. Probably should have gone to Arsenal, to be honest. He probably would have been better there. But anyway, Kendry Páez, 17-year-old, also scooped up by Chelsea. Their new number 10, doing great things for Ecuador already. He scored a wonder goal in the under-18s last year, and I think he stamps his name on this tournament. Also like Colombia, but Ecuador at plus 1,800, worth a shot, guys. My favorite futures bet right now is Group B, Ecuador to win and Mexico to finish second. That's plus 330 right now. So I'm jumping on that. As far as the Golden Boot market, obviously Messi, a huge favorite. A lot of fans in the States are going to be playing Messi now that he's at Miami. But I like the value on Julian Alvarez, plus 650. He scored a number of timely goals for Manchester City. If you watch the Premier League, guys, you know who I'm talking about. Kind of likes to play as a second forward, but I think he's another one that really marks his spot in this tournament and in the world this summer, and maybe looks for a move away from Pep Guardiola and City because of it. So really like the value there, plus 650 on him.
Michelle, what are you looking at for Golden Boot?
For Golden Boot, I've got my eye on Vinicius. Obviously, he plays in that really weak group against Paraguay, Costa Rica. Probably going to get a bucket of goals there. At plus 380 is pretty good value for some. And he's going to be their target, man, obviously. But then when I look at Darwin Núñez at plus 550, he's got 8 and 7 games for Uruguay, scored 11 goals and 8 helpers for Liverpool this year. I loved him for Liverpool. My only problem is he can't score an easy goal to save his life. I mentioned it the other day. Overhead kicks, sure. Headers that like bounce off of someone else, crazy angles, pops them in like no one's business. But a straight tap in can't do it to save his life. If Bielsa can fix that, this guy is going to be one of the more dynamic strikers in the world. Can he? I like the value at 550, but I think it's just going to be Vinny for me. Just play chalk.
Ninja?
Yeah, I think there's good value on Lautaro Martinez here at plus 900. He's really progressed at Inter, coming off another absolutely fantastic season. He's got the World Cup win in his back pocket, so he knows how to win on the international scene. I expect him to have a big tournament. So at 9-1, the value's too good there.
I like the Vinicius Jr. shout. I'm going to go the other way and just go with Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Based off what we've seen for Brazil, and it could change, feels like Vinny's going to do a lot of the creative work, and Rodrigo's going to get chances to crash and finish. He is not as good a player, and if Vinny plays more centrally, he will score the goals. But Michelle, I like the idea of them getting goals in the group stage as well as a potential knockout game and building on it. And I like that Colombia number. I just think if you have 4 favorites and one is such a huge gap in terms of the number, you're getting plus 700 more from them than you are from Uruguay based off the book I'm looking at. I think they're legitimate contenders in this competition. It feels like a lot of the yips in this team have gone away, especially as the backline has changed. No longer Jerry Mina, a guy who has big mistakes in him. They've started, it feels like, to solidify there. And all the attack you guys talked about is still in that group and in that team. My problem is there's not one center forward. So if you don't go with Diaz, you're kind of stuck between Boré or Cordoba. It's hard to tell who's going to consistently play in that spot otherwise for this Colombia team. But they're going to have great crowds. They're going to feel super comfortable in most of the atmospheres they play in. As Michelle mentioned, it seems straightforward to get out of the group. And then at that point, it's Uruguay, a team they've played against many times. They drew them 2-2. They're one of the few teams that's made it hard for them with Bielsa. And then the U.S. as well, who they just beat 5-1 in friendlies. It's a pretty good way to go into that one. Anything we forgot? Anything we're missing before we get out of here?
Not from me. I think we covered it all.
So we've got Canada against Argentina kicking off on Thursday. We will be here live 5 p.m. Eastern time. So we will get you your Euro reaction and help you preview for that game. Friday, then, Peru finishes out that group against Chile. Just the one match Friday night. That will give us some time to preview the whole weekend for you as Copa America gets into the full group stage run of things alongside Euros all weekend. Then we're back next week, 5 p.m. Eastern time, every single day to give you your coverage. If you thought this was fun, if you thought a lot was going on, we are only halfway there. It is about to get so much more hectic. And reminder, the 2 finals coming up in July, they are a doubleheader. So your Copa starting later, less teams. So we will be on basically the same track going all the way through for the next few weeks. 3 Euro games tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time for myself and all of us here. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Summer of soccer.